And now it's time for the investors panel. Please welcome my panelists, Sophie Forrest, Brightspark Ventures, Ben Johnson, Vitruvian Partners, Woody Marshall, Technology Crossover Ventures, and Jenny Wu, Baidu Capital. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic, great. So let's start off with, since you're furthest from me, let's start off with Sophie. So firstly, congratulations on being awarded Angel of the Year.
Thank you.
I mean, that's such a lovely award. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's because we are in Canada. Brightspark is based in Canada, and we've been investing a lot personally into companies and growing the individual investor ecosystem through our new model of investing, where we invite accredited investors to join us in our venture capital deals. So I think it's been recognized as something very unique and disruptive for the angel industry in Canada.
Okay. So you've been running it since 2003, and you've made 50 investments so far in your part of your fund. Tell us about the best travel exit that you've made.
Well, actually, we invest horizontally, so we invest in many industries. Travel is one of them. One company that I love in our portfolio, but we haven't exited yet because we're going to keep it for a long time, is a company called Hopper. And it's based in Montreal. They have an office in Boston also, and I think they're going to present in a few days.
Okay, so we'll come back to that in a while. So Ben, you are with Vitruvian Partners. Since 2007, you made a beautiful exit with Skyscanner. Tell us about how it felt selling a Scottish unicorn to a Chinese dragon.
Extremely disappointing. I say that with jest. We were very fortunate. We invested in the last round, and within months, Ctrip had come knocking on the door of Skyscanner. The company saw a huge opportunity to really guarantee leadership in Asia with the partnership with Ctrip. It was only 11 months after we invested that the company was sold, so it was frustrating because I think we had real conviction there was a 5-10 year runway.
It wasn't that frustrating.
However, on the sort of scorecard of high quality disappointments, it was a very high quality disappointment.
But so do you think you got out at the right time, that the days of really meta searches are over, or what's the next stage, you think?
I remain super bullish on metasearch when it's dealing with a really difficult problem, and I think Skyscanner dealing with very fragmented inventory categories in hard to penetrate markets is solving a really hard user pain point. That's less true perhaps in some other metasearch categories where the inventory stack is less fragmented. So I think Skyscanner has a massive opportunity. I encourage you all to download it on your phones.
Okay, enough of that. Enough of that.
The power of Skyscanner.
No promotion.
So you also sit on the board of OAG, right? And that's a really legacy company. What do you intend to do with that? Transform it and sell it to Ctrip?
Well, I was saying before, we have the contract ready, so we just need to change the name. Everything else is done. No, the key thing about OAG is it's a business that has an incredible legacy position in the market as the trusted data source for flights, flight categories and flight information. What can you do with that? You can do a hell of a lot in solving customers' problems. So the idea is to really supercharge the R&D and bring out some really exciting new products that will, the big travel partners have incredible IT departments, incredible engineering departments to solve these problems themselves. What does everyone else do? They look to partners like OAG to build products to help them achieve success.
All right, so Woody, coming to you, you're known as the man with the Midas touch, the man with the golden touch. I read that. And you've said that exits
Must have been some propaganda that we put out, our PR team.
it's on your your profile, so
as I said.
we must have to believe it. So it says you said that exits are bittersweet. Watching our founders succeed also means saying so long to great entrepreneurs. So what's the most bittersweet ending that you've had, and what's the greatest travel entrepreneur you've said goodbye to?
Well, I think it's hard to say what's the greatest travel entrepreneur. I mean, there's obviously so many of them. I think the whole concept there is, you think about the whole journey of making an investment in a business growing. Usually, we're not startup guys. we invest in companies that have already proved out that there's a market, so we're not waiting to figure out if the dogs eat the dog food. But these are businesses that are growing quite rapidly. And, when I think of, bittersweet, one of them is, in a space that I think still has a long way to go in the alternative lodging space, was our investment in HomeAway.
HomeAway.
So obviously we sold the business to Expedia. It was a great outcome for all involved, and the business had grown pretty substantially from when we invested. But certainly when you take a look at the team that was put together, which I think is a really impressive team led by Brian Sharples, who is the founder and also the CEO, and you just take a look at what Expedia has been able to do with that business, well, again, a great outcome.
So that was bittersweet. Okay.
Those things can definitely
Right.
be bittersweet.
So your fund is 2.5 billion.
Yes.
Yours is 2.5 billion euros.
Four,
Am I right?
2.4.
2.4 billion euros.
We're the baby.
You're the
Like,
baby.
Investing at a $150 million
$150 million?
pace.
Okay. So we have Jenny here. Last year you were on this stage as C-Trip, but this year you are, resurrected as Baidu Capital Partners. Tell us about Baidu Capital Partners, the size of the fund, and what is its purpose.
Sure. Our fund, supposedly the size would be somewhere around $3 billion US dollar. That is really like 20 billion RMB. We called Baidu Capital, so we are affiliate of Baidu, but we are actually an independent PE firm, and we invest in like mid to late stage growth company. And the ticket size usually around like 50 million US dollar. Yeah.
So you told me that you've already invested in 6 companies in this first year.
Yeah.
6 companies.
In this first 10 months.
Okay. Anyone in travel, or is it all outside travel right now?
Sure. The fund is actually officially set up first day of this year, so far it's about like 10 months. We already invest about like 3 billion RMB and 6 companies, and another 3 to 4 are going to be closed by the end of this year. So, and this is pretty much what we are doing so far. And our investment theme is basically we believe in the high technology, and also the technology can change, innovate, and remodify the world. So I divide my team into 2 teams. One team is basically looking at the high technology. Baidu is AI leader in China, so we pretty much have a team specifically looking at the AI industry, like underlying AI technologies and applied technologies. Another team is looking for the platform or user cases that we can implement those technology into those scenarios.
Okay.
And among the investment we made so far, I do not know, Grab Taxi. Your
Grab
label,
Taxi.
your
Southeast
label is
Asia's answer to Uber.
yeah. Your label is travel company or transportation company.
The lines have blurred, right?
Yeah, so it's one of the companies we have like very close relationship with to this travel stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, high tech and platforms.
Yeah.
Are those kind of similar spaces that you're looking at in the next 12 months? What are you keeping your eye on in the next 12 months?
Well, VC investment is about opportunity, so we're strong in software. We looked at hardware companies also, but stronger at software. We're not a vertical fund, so we look at many industries. So we look at trends, but mostly just looking for amazing management team with great ideas and potential to execute in the
So
market.
software and great teams. That's
Yeah.
what you're looking for. What about you?
I think platforms, we've had a lot of success with marketplaces, and we look for more. But also, I think anything where there's disruption happening. So we've got a big focus, because we're a European-focused fund, on disruption in European financial services and other areas like that.
Okay. And anything specific? Is there a company that you're watching more closely than others?
I'd have to kill you. Yeah.
All right. It's not that important.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's, broadly speaking, we have a group of investors focused on the business-to-business side, a lot of software, technology-enabled services, infrastructure, And then on the consumer side, that for us is primarily internet consumer and digital media.
Right.
Travel is obviously a really big vertical, because you think about markets that, if you just look at analog processes that have moved digital, one of the things about travel is it's been around for a while, and you don't have to guess at what a monetization model is. So when you're investing on the growth side, where you want to see a proven business model, or at least a proven monetization model, travel is certainly an area.
So you look to travel to kind of, travel set the pace, and you look to travel for example.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at something like customer acquisition and the whole strategies around attribution. I would say travel companies, any other vertical is learning a lot from travel companies, just because of the scale of transactions and the scale of the dollars that are thrown at the customer acquisition area.
So you clearly believe in the alternative sharing economy, because you're also a player in Airbnb. You're
Yes.
an investor in Airbnb as well.
Yes,
Right.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a niche market. I think if you look at consumer research, consumers look at staying in an alternative lodging accommodation the same way they look at hotels. And there's different use cases, and I think one of the things we look at is what are the technologies and service offerings that actually expand that use case. You think about the business-to-business market, there's a lot of things that business travelers need that, when you go to a hotel, you have. There are ways that you can recreate that in a shared accommodation, or at least an alternative accommodation space.
So Jenny, I mean, what is holding you back from investing in travel? Because you come from a C-trip background, right? And of the 6 investments you've made, they've not been in travel. So what is missing in travel that's not, getting you?
No.
What are you waiting
I don't
for?
want to make people here disappointed. No, it's just like, we are part of Baidu affiliate, so we need to think about how to leverage Baidu's platform and resources. And obviously, they are high-tech company and AI leaders, so obviously we need to take advantage of that. And this technology, they are very general. They can support many different industries. And for travel, Baidu already a big investor for C-trip and the China industry.
So basically, there's been no interesting travel play that has made really good, smart use of AI. Is that what you're saying? You're still waiting for? Would you agree with that? What do you think?
No,
Do you think that's overhyped?
that's not my comment, please.
I disagree.
You disagree,
it's- do not take me wrong. I didn't mean that.
Sorry,
My point is that, for travel industry, we already have a decent presence there. So we need to explore something new, so that we can have additional value for the group. And that's why for our we invest in the industry, industry chain. So the second industry chain that we make deep investment is transportation. So from the upstream, the raw resources and this the basic complement for the car making, to the car manufacturers, and to the car services, and new car selling distribution platform, and all the car distribution platform, and all the way to the car service platform. We already make investment across this value chain.
Right. So you've invested in sort of the Tesla of China, basically, right? And you're building a service around that.
Yeah, kind of that. So we only 8 people, for my team, and so this year basically we spent too much time on this segment, and also logistic and e-commerce and content. So we did not really pay much attention to travel yet. But personally, I'm from travel industry, so I watch this industry closely, and Grab Taxi, I think, is quite related to this travel.
Right. Is that an area of interest at all? Autonomous vehicles?
Yes, absolutely. And, we're not necessarily hardware guys, but, for us, we're waiting for, again, some of these things are science projects at this point. when things get commercialized, that's when we increase our interest.
Okay, so maybe we can talk about, one cool company that has come out of your organization other than Skyscanner, and what was so great about the founding team?
Well, I talked a little bit about Hopper, so I can talk about them. But I think for us, when we look at a company, we need to have those founders that are exceptional, and they can be different to one another, and there's not always the same characteristic, but they need to be fearless. They need to be totally dedicated to what they do. They need to be almost a little bit crazy, because usually they start with an idea that everybody looks at them and thinks, are you crazy? This is not possible.
Do you agree? Would you invest in crazy people?
Well, crazy, I'm not saying, because, I know Fred, the founder of Hopper, and he's an amazing entrepreneur. But you need to be like dreaming and thinking you can accomplish this and never stop, never kind of persevere and go through the process many times and then eventually create the value, which is not the characteristic that you have in many people. So you need to find that team that at the core has the capacity to dream big and execute on it, even if it's really, really hard. And there's a roller coaster where at some point in time you just want to get off the roller coaster, but you can't, right?
Yeah, I prefer to think of it as entrepreneurs that have a high pain threshold as opposed to being crazy, because logically, a lot of times you expect a market to flip, and sometimes it takes longer. And especially markets that have lots of legacy players. The rational perspective would say, God, this is better, faster, cheaper. Why doesn't the market go to that now? And sometimes it doesn't happen. So a founding team and great entrepreneurs have to have that high pain threshold that believe in their vision, unflinching courage under fire, and be very, very focused on what they think the end result is.
But it must be the case, though, that risk-averse people don't become entrepreneurs. And if they do, they'll be very unhappy. So they shouldn't. Risk-loving people do become entrepreneurs, and we adore them because they're taking the risks others don't. So you can't give them a hard time for taking risks. It's what their DNA is leading them to do. So.
Okay, so talking about taking risks, we had our web and travel conference in Singapore 2 weeks ago, and a lot of the global travel brands were basically talking about the next billion users and how the innovation now is coming out of, we're seeing some great innovation kind of China, some markets in Asia. So are you three of you taking risks in going into that market at all? Is that a market of interest?
We're not investing directly in China. We're a small fund. Doesn't make sense to do it directly. But we look closely at what's happening out there, and we try to stay close. And if we're going to do anything in China through our portfolio companies, we're going to partner to do it, for sure.
Yeah, that's the way that we do it, through the portfolio companies.
Right.
I think you can't be a tourist in Asia as an investor. So I think you need to have planted a flag, and that's not a geography where we have a flag at this point.
So maybe, Jenny, I can ask you, what is the most exciting innovation coming out of China that people outside China should be aware of?
Clearly, I think for this mobile internet application, I think China is definitely leading the world. You see this mobile payment. And also, when we look at this industry, we see Tesla is definitely leading the industry globally. But we also see a lot of equivalent in China. They are trying the new way and new things. And the way they are doing the business is quite different from Tesla. But that's more suitable to the China local markets. A lot of innovation and a lot of local know-hows. So that's kind of like a spirit. Combined with technology and local know-how to tap into the real pinpoint of customers. This is kind of thing I think everybody globally should learn from it.
Okay, so maybe...
Hoon, we have an audience question.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm Paul Milhuse from Tours by Locals. I wonder, in the deals that you take a look at, how do you deal with the kind of control conflict? Like, venture capitalists want to maybe have more control than an entrepreneur would choose to give up over the direction and how the business is run. Wonder how you see that.
Yeah, I actually don't agree with that comment. Maybe you should talk to different venture investors, but I think any venture guy or girl wants influence. We're not, I think everybody here is a minority investor. The majority guys want control, that's why they buy majority. But for the most part, I think everybody up here is making minority investments, and all you want is influence, a seat at the table. But our perspective at TCV is we're backing an entrepreneur and a management team. They are making the day-to-day decisions. We're happy to provide advice, and if we think that a management team's doing something that we don't agree with, we'll make our case. Hopefully we're in a position of influence to make an impact in that decision, but we're not investing in companies where we have operational control.
So
Yeah, I agree. We don't, if we invest in team first, so we need to believe that that team can operate the company. If we need to exercise control, then there's a big problem. So we want to influence, we want to help, and often where we want to influence is where the management doesn't have experience, which is our expertise like investment, recruiting, multiple rounds of funding, exit, and so on and so forth, where we can help a lot, but the rest, they should be able to run the company.
So they should go for smart money. So we have 5 minutes left. Let's do rapid fire, shall we? Right? So let's say talking about AI, how much AI now comes into your decision-making process? A little, average, or a lot?
Depends on the company, but for me, AI is more a tool that every company needs. It's not a company in itself. There's a lot of companies that come to pitch and say, I'm an AI company, means absolutely nothing to me.
Right. But I meant like the use of AI by investors to evaluate startups. I hear that AI has a better strike rate than humans.
No,
I read
don't
an
believe in that.
article. Not true, right?
Investing is an art, not a science.
All right. So rapid fire is, what are some of the deal breakers? Like, is there a deal breaker? No matter how amazing the opportunity is there a deal breaker for you? What are the traits and characteristics?
I'd say that one for us is if we don't like the founding team, we don't like the executives, we don't invest. If it's an open goal with an incredible market opportunity, an incredible company, but we can't back the team, we walk away.
Okay.
And other
Ability
people,
to
Totally agree.
other people do those deals and we wish them well, but we never do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
One word.
Yeah, we discussed it before. I totally agree with Ben. The founding team is the key, and for the founding team, for the many characters they have, I especially look at the integrity they have, whether they have the
Okay.
responsibility
Integrity.
for their product, their customer, and the shareholders. I think that's very important. How they treat their partners.
I agree with that.
All right. So agree or disagree, right? The big will get bigger, the middle will get crushed, the small will have to specialize. Does that mean that you guys are therefore not going to play in the middle space? Yes or no?
No,
Every investment is there. It's really hard to make a general comment on that, I find.
I think history suggests that very large companies find it very hard to innovate at scale over time. So there are some incredible companies out there who are doing that, Amazon, for example, being one of them. But history is on the other side of the equation. So there's plenty of role for companies to come up on the outside of the track and do something marvelous. And I think finding those is the challenge, not worrying about the platforms.
And I think it's specific to the business model and what the market structure you're talking about. But
Okay.
the one thing I totally agree with is, and this is in internet land in general, is the bigger getting bigger. There is no question that there's oxygen being taken out of the room by all of the large players. And whether you're talking about the travel large players or you're just talking about the internet players like the Amazons, Apple, Google, and Facebooks, no question.
I mean, Jenny, you've said that, you will only invest if it's number one in any vertical, right?
I'm a strong believer in fundamental research. So for every vertical we look at into, we will do a very thorough, deep analysis about the industry, and then we pick the winner. We only pick not the incumbent leader, we pick the one who will become ultimate leader. Okay. So for the 6 companies we picked so far, each of them, they are the leader, definitely leader in their vertical.
All right.
Yeah.
So we only have 2 minutes, truly rapid fire, one-word answers. Jenny, Asian tigers or global elephants, who will win in Asia?
I think local players have
Local
higher
players,
chance.
okay.
I mean, especially in China.
All right, so for all of you, marketplaces or specialists, who would you bet on?
Depends. I mean, I get specialists.
Specialists?
Marketplaces.
Marketplaces.
I think it's like
One way?
oh, a combination of
Okay.
the both.
Tours and activities, is it the next column supporting the online travel cathedral, or is it a nice little candle holder? Tom or Larry?
Dream.
It's hard to scale.
Hard to scale?
What-
Tours and activities, big or small?
I think it's, it may be hard to scale, but I think it's a pillar.
Okay.
I
Which,
think-
oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I think a very promising industry
Promising,
sector.
okay.
Yeah.
Which sector is overhyped?
AI.
I think you will agree all?
I think
Yeah, okay. Which sector is
AI
under-
technology, high tech company.
Okay. Which sector is underplayed?
I would say that if from a European perspective, people don't realize that there's a lot of traditional activity still. There's a big substitution effect that's still to come offline to online, and that's a big opportunity in some markets.
Really nice.
Even like Germany, which have huge travel markets, very old-fashioned.
All right, so Airbnb, you don't answer that. The yellow brick road to success or an obese whale?
They can fix predictability.
Okay.
I think yellow big
All right.
road.
WeWork, is it real gold or is it pixie dust?
I think put the valuation aside, I like the business model itself because I just do the research about that vertical very carefully, and I feel like it's really a kind of like a trend. And again, it solve the pinpoint of this certain customers like freelance, small SMEs, and now it's become a kind of very widely adopted by the big companies.
Okay,
And
so real gold,
yeah.
the man with the Midas touch. There you go.
I didn't mention about valuation.
All right, please join me in thanking my panelists, Sophie, Ben, Woody, and Jenny.